For decades, Oprah Winfrey has been a symbol of strength, grace, and wisdom. Someone who's helped millions find their own voice. But at 71, in a rare and deeply emotional moment, she opened up about something she spent years avoiding. For as long as she's been in the public eye, there have been whispers about her relationship with Stedman Graham, her choice not to marry, and the quiet pain behind her decision not to have children. Now, Oprah is finally breaking her silence. And what she reveals isn't just personal, it's raw, honest, and more human than anyone expected. The hidden trauma that fueled her rise. When people hear the name Oprah Winfrey, the first thing that comes to mind is her empire, TV shows, magazines, a global brand. But the story of how she got there begins in a much humbler place. She was born to an unwed teenage mother, and she's been open about the fact that her conception was the result of a single encounter. The relationship between her parents ended quickly, which isn't surprising. Her father was still a teenager himself, unprepared for the responsibilities of raising a child. Even her name came with an unusual twist. On her birth certificate, it was written as Orpah, after a figure from the Bible's Book of Ruth. But people kept mispronouncing it as Oprah, and eventually, that version stuck, and the rest is history. Her early childhood was spent with her grandmother on a small farm. Poverty wasn't just a phase, it defined her early years. She's talked about wearing dresses made from potato sacks, which even earned her the nickname Sack Girl. Life on that farm was strict. As Oprah once told David Letterman, children were expected to be seen and not heard. It was an environment that made her retreat inward, and she learned early how to entertain herself. She didn't have toys, so she made her own doll out of a dried corn cob and even kept cockroaches as pets. Even then, Oprah's creative spark was obvious. She would put on little shows for the farm animals, using them as her first audience. But it wasn't just play. Her grandmother also taught her discipline and the value of education. Oprah learned to read by the time she was 2.5. By age 2, she was already reciting verses to her church congregation on Easter Sunday. That confidence carried over to school. There's a well-known story about how young Oprah skipped kindergarten entirely, leaving her teacher a note saying she belonged in the first grade. The school agreed, and her intelligence led her to skip another grade after that, straight to 3rd. It was clear from the beginning that she wasn't going to be an ordinary child. Still, brilliance couldn't shield her from pain. During one interview with Dr. Mehmet Oz, she recalled a childhood memory that showed just how harsh life could be with her grandmother. She told of being sent to the well to fetch water, and when she playfully swirled her fingers in the bucket, her grandmother saw and became furious. The punishment was brutal. Oprah described being whipped so hard that welts formed and bled. Later, when blood from those wounds stained her Sunday dress, she was beaten again for ruining it. Violence wasn't limited to her. Oprah also shared a haunting memory with Entertainment Tonight. One night, her grandfather tried to strangle her grandmother. After that, they slept each night, with a chair pressed under the doorknob and tin cans balanced on top, so the noise would wake them if he tried to enter. Oprah remembered lying awake, listening for the cans, waiting for the sound that might mean danger. It was survival, not childhood. At 6 years old, she moved to Milwaukee to live with her mother, Vernita Lee. That change was jarring. She later described it as suddenly landing in a place that felt completely foreign. She barely knew her mother, and the sense of loneliness hit immediately. Things grew even harder when she arrived at the house her mother was renting. Instead of being welcomed with open arms, she was told she couldn't sleep inside. Her mother's landlady, a light-skinned black woman who could have passed for white, refused to let her stay in the house because of the color of her skin. So little Oprah slept in the small foyer outside the main door, separated from her mother on her very first night there. But even in that painful moment, she leaned on faith for comfort. She later said she knelt down and prayed, believing that God was her father and Jesus was her brother. She didn't cry, she just accepted it, feeling a quiet strength in knowing she wasn't truly alone. Years later, Oprah opened up about one of the most harrowing aspects of her early life. During an episode of her own talk show, she shared publicly for the first time the sexual abuse she suffered as a child. At just 9 years old, she was raped by her 19-year-old cousin, who then bought her ice cream and warned her to keep quiet. Tragically, the abuse continued. In subsequent interviews, she disclosed being molested repeatedly by other family members from ages 10 to 14. After enduring repeated sexual abuse throughout her childhood and teenage years, Oprah Winfrey's sense of identity was left shattered. Her self-esteem and self-worth were deeply damaged, and for years, she carried the weight of that pain in silence. As an adult, long after she'd become the CEO of the Oprah Winfrey Network, she opened up about the impact of those years in a deeply personal piece for her magazine, Oh, the Oprah Magazine. In that essay, she reflected on how one traumatic moment had changed everything, how she stopped feeling like a child in an instant. She revealed that what destroys a victim of sexual abuse isn't just the act itself, but the secret that follows. The unbearable burden of pretending to be okay while hiding what's really happened. That pain shaped how she viewed love and relationships. For years, she admitted, she confused mistreatment with affection. The shame ran so deep that even into her 30s, she still believed she had somehow caused the abuse. As a young girl, she didn't even fully understand what was happening to her. But that silence finally broke when, at just 14 years old, she became pregnant. The story of her pregnancy was eventually sold to the National Enquirer by a family member. For Oprah, it was an unimaginable betrayal. The first leak came from her half-sister, also named Patricia, who reportedly sold the story for $19,000. The news devastated Oprah. She later wrote that she cried in bed for 3 days, feeling wounded, humiliated, and betrayed. She imagined people pointing fingers at her on the street, labeling her as a wicked girl for something that wasn't her fault. That period of her life grew even darker. In an interview with Piers Morgan, Oprah revealed that after discovering she was pregnant, she became so desperate that she tried drinking laundry detergent to end the pregnancy. At that point, she was just a terrified teenager, trying to make sense of years of abuse. She explained that her pregnancy wasn't just about one bad choice, it was the result of ongoing sexual assault that began when she was 9 and continued for years. Acting out and seeking attention, she said, were her ways of crying for help. In later years, she spoke openly about this chapter of her life on the Hollywood Reporters Awards Chatter podcast, calling it the lowest point she had ever reached. She hid the pregnancy completely, consumed by shame and confusion, and admitted that she had thought seriously about ending her own life because she saw no other way out. When doctors told her she was pregnant, she didn't even understand what that meant. Much later, she revealed to People magazine that she had named her son Canaan, a name that means new land and new life. It was symbolic, a gesture of hope amid tragedy. But even after the baby's birth, life didn't get easier. On an episode of Oprah's Life Class, she recalled that her mother, Bernita Lee, tried to send her to a detention home. The only reason that didn't happen was because the facility was full. Instead, she was sent to live with her father, Vernon Winfrey, and his wife, Zelma. When she moved in, Vernon didn't even know she had been pregnant. And when he did find out, his reaction was cold and brutal. According to reports, he once said he would rather see his daughter floating down the Cumberland River than bring shame to the family by having an illegitimate child. Shortly after giving birth, Oprah's baby passed away. That devastating loss became the turning point in her life. Her father encouraged her to see it as a second chance, to understand that her past didn't have to define her. When she later told her family that her favorite uncle might have been the baby's father, they dismissed her claims, blaming her instead. But Vernon's words stayed with her. He told her that what had happened was behind her, and that only she could decide what her future would look like. And that's exactly what she did. How Oprah turned pain into power. Despite the pain and trauma of her early years, Oprah Winfrey always knew she was smart. Even as a young girl, she had a sharp mind and quick instincts. But that intelligence didn't truly find direction until she went to live with her father, Vernon Winfrey. In a 1986 interview with The Washington Post, Oprah looked back on that period and admitted she had been heading down a dangerous road. Life without structure had almost led her astray, and she knew it. When she moved in with Vernon, everything changed. He was strict, demanding, and deeply disciplined, especially when it came to education. He expected excellence and didn't accept excuses. There was a time when Oprah came home with a few C's on her report card, and instead of being angry about the grades themselves, Vernon told her he was disappointed because he knew she could do better. He saw her potential long before she did, and he refused to let her waste it. That tough love made all the difference. Under his guidance, Oprah blossomed. She became an honors student, was voted most popular girl, joined the speech team at East Nashville High School, and even placed second in the entire nation in dramatic interpretation. Vernon's insistence on hard work and self-discipline didn't just turn her grades around, it changed the entire course of her life. But Vernon's influence went beyond academics. His strong personal values and unwavering sense of responsibility shaped the moral foundation Oprah would carry into adulthood. He didn't just talk about integrity, he lived it every day. That example left a deep impression on her, inspiring one of the central messages of her entire career: the importance of being authentic and living with purpose. At just 17, Oprah's confidence and charisma began shining through. She won the Miss Black Tennessee Beauty pageant and earned a full scholarship to Tennessee State University after winning an oratory contest. She majored in communications, fitting for someone who had always been a gifted speaker, and quickly stepped into the world of broadcasting. Her first big break came at WLAC-TV in Nashville, where she made history as both the youngest and the first black female news anchor. But the job wasn't as glamorous as it sounded. When she later moved to WJZ-TV, an ABC affiliate in Baltimore, the experience turned rough. Reporting hard news didn't come naturally to her. During one live segment about a tragic house fire, Oprah broke down in tears on air. The newsroom environment, with its emotional detachment and fast-paced pressure, clashed with her natural empathy. In her early days, she even struggled with pronunciation and had moments that made her colleagues question her fit for hard news. Once, she got such a bad perm that her hair began to fall out, a small but symbolic reminder of how out of place she felt in that world. Years later, she told Stanford business students that the issue wasn't professionalism, it was her compassion. She simply cared too deeply. Where others could separate themselves from the pain of the stories, she couldn't. Her big turning point came when she transitioned to a local talk show called People Are Talking. This was where everything finally clicked. Her warmth, humor, and ability to connect made guests feel instantly comfortable. Her conversational, off-the-cuff style became her greatest strength, allowing her to form genuine connections that viewers loved. Reflecting on that period, Oprah once said Baltimore became her classroom. It was her training ground, not just for television, but for life. It was the first time she was truly on her own, learning to navigate adulthood, build confidence, and hold her own in a corporate environment. And Baltimore would also give her one of the earliest lessons in self-worth that defined her career. While co-hosting People Are Talking, Oprah discovered that her male co-host was being paid more than she was, even though they did the exact same job. Instead of staying quiet, she decided to confront her boss about it. When Oprah raised the issue of the pay gap, his reply struck her as profoundly sexist. He inquired whether she had children, a mortgage, or college tuition to cover. Upon her negative response, he pressed further. Why, then, did she require equal compensation? In that instant, a pivotal shift occurred. She recognized that her worth was not for others to define or rationalize. politely thanking him, she exited the room and resolved never again to allow anyone else to dictate her value. This assertion of self-respect marked one of the most formative episodes in her nascent career, laying the foundation for the iconic figure she would evolve into. The interview that nearly ended in disaster. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Oprah Winfrey knew exactly what she was stepping into. She wasn't just another talk show host trying to make it big. She was stepping onto a stage perfectly suited for her natural gift, connecting with people and getting them to open up about real, meaningful issues. Her big break came when Chicago's ABC affiliate, WLS-TV, hired her to host a 30-minute morning show called AM Chicago. And almost instantly, she turned that small-time program into a phenomenon. Within months of her arrival, the show went from last place to the very top of the ratings, even overtaking Donahue, which had ruled daytime television for years. From that moment on, it was clear Oprah had something special. Her warmth, curiosity, and emotional honesty resonated deeply with audiences. People weren't just watching her, they were connecting with her. Then came one of the biggest moments in television history. In February 1993, Oprah sat down with Michael Jackson for his first official interview in 14 years. Broadcast live in primetime, it drew a staggering 90 million viewers. The entire world tuned in to see the pop superstar open up about the mysteries surrounding his life. Jackson used that rare platform to address long-standing rumors. He explained that his changing skin tone was caused by vitiligo, not cosmetic bleaching. He clarified the infamous hyperbaric chamber story, saying the photo was real, but the story behind it was exaggerated. He had simply tested the device before donating one to a burn center. He even spoke about his childhood, describing the emotional and physical abuse he suffered from his father, Joe Jackson. But there were limits to how far he'd go. When Oprah pressed him about his love life, Jackson politely refused to elaborate, saying some things were just too personal. By this point, Oprah's reputation was soaring. In 1986, the well-known film critic Roger Ebert made a move that changed everything for her. He convinced Oprah to sign a syndication deal with King World Productions, predicting that her show would earn 40 times what his own At the Movies had made. He was right, though even he underestimated just how massive her success would become. When the Oprah Winfrey Show expanded to a full hour and went national, it exploded. Within months, it became the #1 daytime talk show in America, doubling Donahue's audience and redefining what television could look like. Time magazine took note, describing her as a powerful new force in a field dominated by white male hosts. They highlighted her plain-spoken honesty, humor, and most importantly, her empathy, the quality that made millions of viewers trust her instantly. Just 2 years later, Oprah landed one of the biggest interviews of her career, Elizabeth Taylor. The setting was perfect. 2 icons sitting down for a conversation at the elegant Hotel Bel Air. But the moment the cameras were about to roll, Taylor dropped a bombshell. She told Oprah she couldn't ask about her relationships. For a woman who had been married 7 times, that was half the story gone before it even began. The interview that followed was tense. Taylor's answers were short, her tone guarded, and the silences awkward. At one point, she even told Oprah it was none of your business. For a host known for warmth and connection, it was a nightmare. Later, Oprah admitted that frustration made her blurt out something she immediately regretted. Watching it back years later, she described it as the worst interview of her life. Still, life has a funny way of giving second chances. 4 years later, the 2 women sat down again, this time on The Oprah Winfrey Show, and the energy couldn't have been more different. Taylor was open, relaxed, and warm. She talked about her deep friendship with Michael Jackson and her time in rehab at the Betty Ford Center, where she met her final husband, Larry Fortensky, a construction worker 20 years younger than her. As she spoke, Taylor's vulnerability shone through. She even reached for Oprah's hand, as she gushed about her love for Fortensky, describing how they bonded over simple things like rides, picnics, and grocery store trips, ordinary moments that made her feel truly alive. How Oprah's confession shocked millions. In 1994, Oprah Winfrey turned 40, a milestone that made her stop and take stock of her life. Like many people reaching that age, she began asking herself what was next. It wasn't just about getting older, it was about redefining who she wanted to be and what kind of impact she wanted her work to have. At the time, she spoke openly about this sense of transformation. She explained that she no longer felt the need to make everyone like her. What mattered most was that she finally liked herself. That shift in mindset set the stage for one of the most important reinventions of her career. A big part of that change came from a book that deeply influenced her thinking, The Seat of the Soul, by Gary Zukav. On NPR's Making Oprah podcast, she shared that this book completely reshaped how she approached both her life and her show. One of its central ideas, acting with intention, became her new mantra. She encouraged her staff to adopt the same principle. Every segment, every conversation, every decision should have purpose behind it. This philosophy marked a major turning point for the Oprah Winfrey Show. Gone were the days of sensational topics and endless dysfunction. Oprah wanted to move towards something more meaningful, something that could truly help people grow. She made it clear she didn't want to keep talking about problems. She wanted to focus on solutions. That mindset gave birth to a new era of programming that would define her brand. This was the period that produced iconic themes like Change Your Life TV, Remembering Your Spirit, and the ever-popular Live Your Best Life. It was also when Oprah's book club exploded into a cultural phenomenon, creating instant bestsellers and bringing a wave of positivity to her show. Not everyone was on board at first. Some critics found the new self-help tone a little too heavy-handed, and ratings dipped for a while. But Oprah didn't back down. She believed this new direction aligned with who she was becoming. Her only regret, which she later admitted to TV critics, was the title Change Your Life TV. She felt it wasn't her place to claim she had changed anyone's life, only that she was offering tools for people to change their own. Still, nothing showcased her authenticity more than what happened in 1995. During an episode about use among women, the conversation took a surprising and deeply personal turn. Oprah was interviewing 4 guests, including journalist Patricia Gaines, who mentioned that many women started using drugs because of pressure from their partners. Something about that hit home for Oprah. In one of the most unfiltered moments of her career, she confessed that she had also used drugs in her past, back when she worked as a news anchor in the mid-1970s. She admitted that she had done it because of someone else's influence, a decision that haunted her for years. That on-air revelation wasn't planned, and the emotion was raw. When the cameras stopped rolling, she broke down and had to pause filming to collect herself. As the years went on, Oprah continued using her platform for real conversations, ones that mixed vulnerability with power. And she wasn't afraid to step into bigger global stories either. In the 1980s and 1990s, for example, she became one of the first American interviewers to bring the British royal family's private struggles to a worldwide audience. Long before Meghan Markle sat down with her, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, and former wife of Prince Andrew, turned to Oprah in 1996 to share her own painful truth. Fresh off her divorce, Fergie told Oprah that life inside Buckingham Palace was far from a fairy tale. She described it as rigid, joyless, and suffocating, down to details like how far palace windows could be opened. The Duchess laughed about throwing them wide open, only to be scolded for breaking protocol. But the tone quickly turned serious when she talked about the British media. She described the press as cruel, abusive, and relentlessly invasive. Those interviews became regular occurrences whenever Fergie faced new scandals, whether it was being caught in a bribery sting or being left off the guest list for William and Kate's wedding. For her, Oprah's show became a safe space, a place to reclaim her side of the story. But perhaps one of the most explosive moments in the show's history came just a few months before that royal tell-all. In the spring of 1996, the United Kingdom was in the middle of a terrifying health crisis: mad cow disease. The disease, which attacked the central nervous system of cattle, had the potential to infect humans through contaminated beef, causing a fatal variant called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Right in the middle of this panic, the Oprah Winfrey Show hosted a guest who would set off an international firestorm. Howard Lyman, a former cattle rancher turned animal welfare advocate, appeared on the show to talk about the risks of contaminated feed being used in U.S. livestock. He warned that similar practices could allow mad cow to spread in America, and his words sent shock waves through the meat industry. Oprah's reaction was immediate and genuine. She declared she was done eating burgers, and that single sentence was enough to shake Wall Street. Beef prices plummeted within hours, staying low for months. Texas ranchers were furious. One of them, Paul Engler, claimed he lost nearly $7 million and organized a class-action libel suit against Oprah and her team, accusing them of defaming American beef. The case dragged on for 6 weeks, with Oprah relocating production to Texas during the trial. But in the end, she stood her ground and won. Oprah's stunning transformation leaves fans speechless. Oprah Winfrey completely stole the spotlight when she arrived at the 2024 Democratic National Convention. It was as if she had stepped straight out of a time capsule, glowing, radiant, and looking decades younger than her 70 years. The Queen of Talk showed up with that same effortless grace she's always had, but this time she looked practically ageless. Naturally, the internet went into full meltdown mode. Social media lit up with theories and wild guesses. People wanted to know everything. Did Oprah discover the secret to eternal youth? Was this the work of a skilled plastic surgeon? Or was she simply on the much-hyped Ozempic trend sweeping through Hollywood? The questions came fast, but, as it turns out, her secret might involve her doctor, just not in the dramatic way people imagined. As soon as she took the stage, posts flooded X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. One fan captured the mood perfectly, saying they didn't care about Kamala Harris's speech. They just wanted to know where Oprah found the elixir of eternal youth. Others marveled that she somehow looked younger now than she did 15 years ago. Of course, internet discussions about celebrities always come with their fair share of wild theories. Some users took it to ridiculous extremes, spinning up old conspiracy favorites. But while the internet entertained itself with rumors, actual experts were ready with more grounded explanations. Dr. Mariano Busso, a board-certified cosmetic dermatologist based in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, explained that Oprah's youthful appearance likely comes from years of subtle, high-quality treatments. No dark secrets, just careful, consistent cosmetic care. And with Oprah's kind of wealth, she can certainly afford the best. According to Dr. Busso, there aren't glaring signs of major plastic surgery, but there are small, telling details. He noted that her neck doesn't show the usual signs of aging or weight fluctuation. He also pointed out a possible chin implant and a lifted brow position that defies the pull of gravity. He even suggested she might have had a rhinoplasty at some point, as her nose appears more refined now than it once was. But the real secret, he said, isn't in one big change. It's in her strategy. Oprah has likely been doing small, gradual tweaks over time. The smartest celebrities, he explained, make tiny improvements early so they never look drastically altered. Dr. Patrick Davis, a Beverly Hills facial plastic surgeon, also weighed in. He agreed that Oprah's appearance suggests expert-level cosmetic work, if any at all. For someone her age, she looks incredible. And if she did have procedures done, he described them as seamless. He noted her expressive face, youthful eye movement, and the absence of stiffness, all signs of subtle, skillful Botox use. Davis also observed that Oprah's lower face and neck haven't aged the way most do by 70. That could point to a deep, plain facelift, one of the most natural-looking surgical options. Still, he was careful to say this isn't certain, just an educated guess based on her results. For decades, Oprah has denied going under the knife. She even laughed off the rumors on her show back in 2003, listing the supposed surgeries she'd been accused of and brushing them aside. She ended with her trademark confidence, saying she'd be the first to admit it if she ever did have plastic surgery. And so far, she hasn't. When it comes to her weight, though, Oprah has been nothing but transparent. She's tried countless methods over the years: liquid diets, public weight loss challenges, and even a partnership with Weight Watchers, which she eventually stepped away from in 2024. In more recent years, she's been open about the toll diet culture took on her and the unrealistic standards it created. On a YouTube special, she admitted to being a willing participant in promoting that culture, expressing deep regret for setting expectations no one could truly meet. Now, Oprah's focus is on balance and well-being. She's acknowledged using a weight loss medication, though she hasn't named it, describing it simply as a tool to maintain her health. For her, it's not about vanity anymore. It's about freedom. As she told People magazine, having a medical option to manage her weight feels like relief and redemption. And after decades in the public eye, constantly judged and scrutinized, Oprah's stance is clear. She's done with the shaming, from others and from herself. At 71, Oprah Winfrey breaks down and confirms the rumors. Everyone knows about Oprah's longtime partner, Stedman Graham. But what some people might not realize is that Oprah made a very intentional decision not to marry him, and not to have children either. Now, of course, that doesn't include the baby she gave birth to at just 14, who tragically passed away shortly after birth. Still, despite her massive success and wealth, the kind that could easily support multiple families, Oprah has always seemed perfectly content to walk her own path. Throughout her career, she's been open about that choice. And, more importantly, about the fact that she has no regrets. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, she once admitted that her demanding schedule simply wouldn't have allowed her to be the kind of mother she'd want to be. In her own words, if she'd had children, they would have grown up resenting her. She even joked that they might have ended up on The Oprah Winfrey Show one day, talking about how she wasn't there for them. In another interview with People, Oprah explained that she realized how deeply parenthood can shape a person. After years of interviewing guests whose pain often traced back to their parents, she began to see a clear pattern. It made her stop and think, maybe not everyone is meant to be a parent. As she put it, she met so many people who were struggling because their parents didn't understand how serious that responsibility really was. Speaking to Good Housekeeping, Oprah admitted that she's just not the kind of person who can compartmentalize life the way some parents do. She said that when people used to pressure her to marry and have kids, she already knew she wouldn't be someone who'd look back and regret not doing it. Instead, she's always seen herself as a mother figure to all children, not just her own. And when it comes to marriage, Oprah has been just as transparent. Despite being in a relationship with Stedman for decades, she's never felt the need to make it official. Stedman, who was previously married and has a child from that relationship, shares her outlook completely. Oprah once told Vogue that people rarely believe it, but she's genuinely happy without being a bride. She's even joked with Stedman about what might have happened if they had tied the knot. His response was simple and honest. They probably wouldn't still be together. Oprah agrees. For her, marriage requires a different kind of mindset, one that neither of them felt fit the life they were living. Stedman has backed her up on that more than once. In a chat with Larry King, he said Oprah summed it up perfectly in an article. They both lead incredibly busy, independent lives, and forcing a marriage into that equation just never made sense. What matters most to both of them is the love, trust, and partnership they've built over time. So while Oprah's faced her fair share of challenges, it's clear that one thing she's managed to avoid is the turmoil of a relationship that wasn't right for her. For all her success, perhaps her greatest accomplishment has been staying true to herself.